You're standing in front of a mirror, smiling. But that smile, it doesn't feel like yours, does it? Hold that thought. Now let's rewind. Think back to the very first time you wore an identity that wasn't truly you. Maybe you were 5, maybe 7. You felt the tears welling up, ready to spill, but a voice said, "Big kids don't cry." So you swallowed them down. Or maybe you were bursting with frustration, a righteous anger bubbling inside, but you were quickly labeled the rude child. You were terrified, your heart pounding like a drum, but you were told, "Be brave, don't be a baby." And in that moment, something clicked in your small, developing mind. A simple, powerful equation formed. The real me is dangerous. The fake me is safe. And just like that, a persona was born. This isn't about wearing a mask for a little while. It's about becoming the mask. Years go by, maybe even decades. The mask becomes so flawlessly integrated, so convincing, that you forget there's even a face underneath. You wake up, look in the mirror, and greet a stranger you've spent your whole life perfecting. On the surface, everything looks great. Your coworkers love your easygoing nature. Your family is proud of your achievements. Your partner admires your strength. You've played the part so well, you deserve an award. But then, at night, when the world is quiet and the applause dies down, a deep, persistent ache surfaces. A quiet whisper from a forgotten part of you asks, "But what about the real me? Where did I go?" Today, we're diving deep into the psychology of personas. We're going to explore the roles you've played and the masks you've worn throughout your life. Because these personas, while they may have protected you, come at a cost. And you cannot be truly free until you understand that cost and are ready to reclaim what you've lost. It's time to find the person behind the mask. If this resonates with you, stick around. We have a lot to unpack. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this journey of self-discovery is one you won't want to miss. Thanks for being here. Carl Jung called the face we show the world the persona, Latin for mask. It comes from the masks worn by actors in ancient Greek theater. But Jung wasn't talking about theatrical performance. He was talking about survival. Because none of us can truly show up as ourselves. Society demands conformity. Family expects approval. Work requires professionalism. Love seeks performance. And so we learn which face gets us loved, which role keeps us safe, which mask prevents us from being alone. The good child persona, the strong leader persona, the cheerful friend persona, the perfect partner persona. These personas aren't bad. In fact, they're necessary. The problem begins when the persona starts living you, because the persona starts as a tool, but over time it becomes your identity. And one day you wake up. You realize you've spent 30 years living someone else's life, in a job you don't love, in a marriage you don't recognize, in a self you don't know. So how does this happen? How does a person lose themselves? Let me take you back to the moment a child creates their first persona. Jung says, the persona is a compromise we develop to adapt. We conform to society while remaining somewhat ourselves. But when this balance breaks, the persona becomes not our master, but our prison. A child is authentic. At first, they cry because they're hurt. They laugh because they're happy. They get angry because their boundary was crossed. They show love because they feel it. But one day that authenticity is punished. Don't cry, it's shameful. Don't laugh too much, be serious. Don't get angry, you're a bad child. Don't cling, don't be needy. And the child learns, the real me gets rejected. The fake me gets accepted. In psychology, we call this conditional love. Love that only accepts a certain version of you. Not you, but your performance. This is where the split begins. The real self gets buried, pushed into darkness, condemned to silence. The persona emerges, steps onto the stage, receives applause. And the child survives, but loses a piece of themselves. This has been proven neurologically. Children who are constantly pushed away from authenticity experience chronic stress in their limbic system. The prefrontal cortex fails to maintain identity integration. The result? A fragmented sense of self. In Jung's words, we become the victims of our personas. And here's the tragedy. We don't even notice, because the persona becomes so convincing that the real self is forgotten. Only sometimes in quiet moments there's a deep emptiness, a sense of something missing, a loneliness. Everyone knows me, but no one really knows me. That voice is the cry of the buried self. And here's something else critical. The persona doesn't just stay a mask. Over time it becomes a belief system. You start saying, this is who I am. I'm naturally strong. I'm always cheerful. I never show weakness. But these aren't you. These are the lines of a character you created to survive. We all have different personas. Some are used at work, some with family, some in love. But certain personas take over your entire life. The perfectionist persona. If I do everything flawlessly, I'll be worthy. This person never makes mistakes, always prepared, always successful, but inside they're burning out, because perfection isn't a goal, it's an escape. Don't see me, see my achievements. In childhood they likely received conditional love. They were only loved when they succeeded. Now as adults they still search for their worth in achievement. The good child. Persona. If I please everyone, they won't abandon me. This person can never say no, ignores their own needs, becomes everyone's therapist. But no one asks if they're okay, because the persona broadcasts "I'm fine" so powerfully. This persona often develops in children who grew up in emotionally unstable homes. They became the family peacekeeper, and now they carry the whole world. The strong leader. Persona. If I never show weakness, I'm safe. This person never cries, never gets tired, always in control. But inside there's a child, exhausted, scared, wanting to be held. But they can't show it, because leaders are strong, right? This persona often has roots in early responsibility, perhaps parentification, perhaps weakness was punished in their family. Now they can't remove the armor, the cheerful friend persona. If I keep smiling, no one will see my pain. This person is the life of the party, always positive, always fun. But when they get home, the mask drops, and emptiness remains, because the joy wasn't real. It was a method of escape. This persona often arises from traumatic childhood. Cheerfulness was a survival strategy. Now it's a prison they're trapped in. These personas help us survive, but they prevent us from living, because the stronger the persona, the deeper the real self gets buried. Years pass. The persona perfects itself. It becomes reflexive now. You wake up in the morning, put on the persona, go to work, strengthen the persona. Come home, can't take off the persona, because you're not sure what's underneath anymore. And life continues. But something is always missing. In relationships, your lover loves you. But which you? The persona you show, or the real you underneath? And this question wakes you up at midnight, because you're afraid. What if they saw the real me? Would they still love me? That's why you can never truly get close. Can't take off the mask, because without the mask you don't know who you are. Jung says, the greatest tragedy is to completely identify with your persona and forget your true self. In career, you're successful. Everyone says so. Promotions, money, praise. But inside you're hollow, because this success isn't yours. It's the persona's. And one day you're standing at the top. You look down and realize the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Within yourself. This is the worst part. When you look in the mirror, you see a stranger. When you speak, it doesn't sound like your voice. When you make decisions, you don't know whose decision it is. Who am I? Is no longer a philosophical question. It's an existential crisis, and sometimes it becomes unbearable. The voice inside screams, enough! I can't perform anymore. I won't wear this mask. Jung calls this persona collapse. The moment when the ego can no longer hold the weight and shatters. From the outside it looks like they suddenly went crazy, but the truth is they've been crazy for years. They were just performing perfectly. So, is persona collapse a disaster? No. It might be the most important moment of your life, because only when the persona collapses can the real self surface. So what do you do? How do you live without masks? First, understand this. The persona isn't destroyed. It shouldn't be. Because we live in society. Personas enable social harmony. Being professional at work, being kind with family, these are necessary. The problem is being the persona's slave, not its master. What Jung says is this: know your persona, but don't identify with it. Meaning, be aware. Know which roles you play. See which masks you wear. But remember that beneath them all, there's a real self. First step, awareness. Ask yourself, right now, am I me or am I the persona? With your friends, are you really you? Or is it the cheerful friend persona? Alone with your partner, can you be vulnerable? Or is the strong partner persona running the show? In a work meeting, what's your real opinion? Or is the professional employee persona speaking? Second step, meeting the buried self. There are parts you pushed inside years ago, angry parts, sad parts, scared parts. Turn to them, listen to them. Don't be ashamed. Write, draw, cry, scream, but do it consciously, because this is the journey back. Third step, learning to live as your real self. Small steps. First, talk authentically with someone you trust. Then speak your real opinion in a meeting. Then show your lover a vulnerable moment. Is it scary? Yes. But it's also liberating. Because for the first time, when you're loved, you'll know it's really you being loved, not your performance. Carl Jung said, the more a person identifies with their persona, the more unconscious they become. But the reverse is also true. The more you live as your real self, the more conscious you become. Masks aren't bad, but when you wear the mask, make sure the mask isn't wearing you. Because life is not a performance, life is an experience, and you can only truly live when you live as your real self. Maybe for years you've been a persona, maybe you still are, but now you know, there's a face underneath, forgotten, silent, but still there. Go back, find that face, embrace it, because you are the person you see when the mask comes off, and that person has always been there, just waiting in the darkness. It's time to step into the light. Being your real self is the greatest act of courage, but once you are, you'll never be lost again.